Welcome to Simpler Bible, a daily journey to biblical understanding. Welcome to episode 24. We continue in Exodus with a very famous story as we see Moses meeting God at the burning bush. At this point, it's been about 40 years since Moses fled Egypt. He's now 80 years old, all right? Pick up with me in Exodus 3, verse 1. Now Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro. Told you he was going to be called Jethro later. The priest of Midian. That's an interesting thing, by the way. He's the priest of Midian. And he led his flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. One of the things that you want to know is that Horeb here, it's going to be called Horeb for the next couple of books. Horeb is also Mount Sinai. All right, it's just a different name for Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai is where we'll see later in Exodus where Moses goes up and receives the Ten Commandments. It is where the people will meet with God when they come out of Egypt. And so this is the mountain that the burning bush is on, same mountain, all right? Verse 2, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in the flame of fire out of the midst of the bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. All right, another thing I want you to note here, it says, the angel of the Lord. Every now and then, the Bible, well, more so probably than every now and then, but we see angels in the Bible. An angel of the Lord. In the book of Daniel, you see an angel of the Lord. Occasionally, you will see the angel of the Lord. And the angel of the Lord is decidedly different than an angel of the Lord. And let me explain to you why. Let's keep going, and I'll build this out just a little bit more for you. But keep note of that there is a difference between an angel or a angel and the angel. So begin with me again in verse 2, and sorry for pausing so much. The angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of the bush. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. Moses said, I will turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. When the Lord saw that he turned to see, God called to him out of the bush. Moses, Moses, he said, here I am. And then he said, do not come near, but take the sandals off your feet, for the place where you're standing is holy ground. And he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Oh my goodness, so much to unpack here. So a couple of things. The angel of the Lord, back in verse 2, appeared to him in the flame of fire, right? And then you go down a little bit further, and it says, when the Lord saw that he turned aside, God called to him out of the bush. So God and the angel of the Lord are synonymous there. And then it goes on to say, he said, do not come near, but take the sandals off your feet, for the place you're standing is holy ground. So this place, holy ground, also indicative of God. And then he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So one of the things that's unique about the angel of the Lord is that the angel of the Lord speaks for God, because it's a manifestation of God. This is not just an angel that's a created being. This isn't just an angel that Hebrews 1:14 says is a ministering spirit sent out to serve those who inherit salvation. This isn't someone who's just at the beck and call of God. This is a physical manifestation of God. And maybe a lot of people speculate that the angel of the Lord is actually Christ. We talked about that a little bit when we were in Genesis 18, that the angel of the Lord and two angels appeared to God right before appeared to Abraham before the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. And so the angel of the Lord is different than an angel, receives worship. Here's an interesting thing. In the book of Revelation, for example, John the Revelator is recording these things. Twice he goes to bow down and worship an angel. And twice the angel says, don't worship me. I'm a creature just like you are. I'm created just like you. Don't worship me. And so we see that twice. But the angel of the Lord receives worship, not only here, but even in Joshua chapter 5. So remember the angel of the Lord here, God the Lord spoke to Moses and said, take the sandals off your feet, for where you're standing is holy ground. Joshua, quite a bit of time later, as he is leading the people into the promised land, Joshua is confronted by the angel of the Lord again. And so that's going to be about 40 years from now. And in Joshua 5, the angel of the Lord comes to him, and Joshua says, whose side are you on? Are you on our side or our enemy's side? And the angel of the Lord says, I'm on neither side. He goes, I am the commander of the host of heaven. That's not an angel. That's the angel of the Lord. That is God. That's Christ, okay? And so then the angel of the Lord tells Joshua in Joshua 5:15, take your sandals off, for the place you're standing is holy ground. And that's something that very unique, all right? That's not ever done by an angel. The angel that comes and speaks to Daniel in the book of Daniel doesn't tell him, take your sandals off, you're on holy ground. So this is meeting with the very person of God. The angel of the Lord is a physical representation of the person of God. Now, a couple of other things. It says here, He said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We're going to see this repeated a lot, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the forefathers. But something I want you to consider when you read that, I want you to consider Mark 12, Luke 20, and also Matthew 22. In all three of these places, the Sadducees, who do not believe in the resurrection of the dead, the Sadducees don't believe in the resurrection of the dead. They don't believe in angels. They don't believe in spirits. And they've come to Jesus, and they're trying to trick Jesus. And they say to him, there was a certain Hebrew man who married a woman, but before he could give her kids, he died. So according to the law, his brother married her. And before he could give her kids, he died. And so all 7 brothers, there were 7 brothers, all 7 of them married the same woman. All of them, before they could give her kids, died. And they say, in the resurrection, whose wife will she be? They're trying to trick Jesus. And Jesus, in all 3 places, Matthew 22, more specifically in Mark 12 and Luke 20, I'll have the exact addresses for you in the notes, but in Mark 12 and in Luke 20, Jesus says, you neither know the scriptures nor the power of God. For God is not the God of the dead, but of the living. Have you not read about what God said to Moses in the passage of the burning bush? I am the God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. Therefore, he is not the God of the dead, but the God of the living. And so this quote right here is this first kind of big verse that we can unpack that speaks to the resurrection from the dead. It's one that Jesus uses to prove the resurrection of the dead. And so we need to give it its full due here, that this is not just Jesus or God saying, the angel of the Lord saying, I was the God of Abraham, I was the God of Isaac, I was the God of Jacob. He says, I am the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Jesus quotes this in the New Testament to be indicative that there is a resurrection from the dead. And so that verse is key, quoted by Jesus in the New Testament to foreshadow for us the resurrection of the dead, because God is not the God of the dead, but the God of the living. Verse 7. Then the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt. I have heard their cries because of their taskmasters, and I know their sufferings. And I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, to bring them up out of that land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And now behold, the cry of the people has come to me, and I have seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. I want to remind you of something as we're reading through this. This nation, Israel, has been at this point in Egypt for 430 years. And for at least 80 of that, they have been in terrible suffering, terrible traumatic slavery conditions where they are oppressed and they are mistreated. And you remember that the people have been crying out to God. God has heard their cry. The book of Genesis tells us that God has heard their cry. He knew, he remembered, he knows what's going on with the people. And I want to remind you of something as you go through whatever it is that you're going through today. I want you to be reminded of what Peter says in 1 Peter. He says, cast all your cares on God because he cares for you. And Peter is speaking about the believers. And Peter, 1 Peter specifically, is talking to believers who are suffering. He uses the term suffering 17 times in these very few pages. And he is reminding them that, look, you can come before God with confidence. You can cast your cares on God with confidence because he cares for you. And so don't forget that your God in heaven cares for you. You are not far away from him. You are not distant from him. Be reminded that in Romans 8, the Bible teaches that the Holy Spirit intercedes on behalf for us with groans too deep for understanding, and that Christ intercedes on behalf for us. And so you have a position with the Father that is secure because of your faith in Jesus. And so if you ever feel like, why doesn't God remember me? Why doesn't God see me in my suffering? He does. And you and I have a better position before the Father than these guys did, because we come to the Father based on Christ and what Christ has done. And so that is super encouraging. In verse 10, God says to Moses, come, I will send you to Pharaoh that you may bring the people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go into Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out? He said, I will be with you, and this will be a sign for you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. He said, here's the sign that I'm the one who's accomplishing this. When you come out with all the people of Israel, you're going to worship me right here on this mountain, which we know eventually is Mount Sinai. Then Moses, it's the same name, Horeb and Mount Sinai. Then Moses said to God, if I come to the people of Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask, what is his name? What shall I say to them? And God said to them, I am who I am. It could also be translated as I will be what I will be. It basically just means I am everything that I've declared that I am. It's kind of an all-encompassing name. And God said, say to the people of Israel, I am has sent you. God also said to Moses, say this to the people of Israel, the Lord, the God of your fathers, and here it is again, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this is how I should be remembered throughout all generations. Go and gather the elders of Israel together and say to them, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob has appeared to me, saying, I have observed you and seen everything that is done to you in Egypt. And I promise you that I will bring you up out of the land of affliction of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And they will listen to your voice, and the elders of Israel shall go to the king of Egypt with you and say to him, the Lord, the God of Hebrews, has met with us, and now please let us go a 3 days journey into the wilderness that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. So here's what he says. It sounds simple enough. Go tell all the people that I'm here to rescue them. Go tell all the people to get the elders and go stand before Pharaoh and say, hey, listen, we want to go 3 days journey into the wilderness. We want to go worship God. Verse 19, but I know that the king of Egypt will not let you go unless I compel him by a mighty hand. So I will stretch out my hand and I will strike Egypt with all the wonders that I will do in it. After that, he will let you go. And look at verse 21 and 22. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. I'll give the Hebrews favor in the sight of the Egyptians. And when you go out, you will not go out empty-handed, but each woman shall ask of her neighbor and any woman who lives in her house for silver and gold jewelry and for clothing. And you shall put them on your sons and on your daughters, and thus you shall plunder the Egyptians. So God says, look, when I send you out, I want all the women to ask all the other women, hey, give us all your treasures, give us all your jewelry, give us all your clothes, and by this means you will plunder the Egyptians, which is already foretold for us in Genesis 15:14, when God says to Abraham, again, your people are going to go and live in a foreign land, there'll be slaves there, but when they come out, I will have them plunder the people that they have been serving. And so if you're curious, I like this. So back in Genesis 15, Abraham's about 85, so we're going to say 15 years until he has Isaac. And then we're going to say 60 years until Isaac has Esau and Jacob. And then we're going to say 130 years until Jacob moves to Egypt. And then 430 years till they come out. And what are we going to end up with? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, about 635 years from the time that God told Abraham, your people are going to be slaves and they're going to plunder the Egyptian people, to the time that they're actually plundering the Egyptian people. So if you're curious about how much time has passed, about 635 years has passed between Genesis 15 and here where we are in Exodus 3. So God has introduced himself, has given his new name to Moses, has told Moses and foreshadowed to the rest of the Bible that he is the God of the living, not the dead. And he has made himself known to this, and it is awesome. And Moses has taken off the sandals of his feet. He has stood before the angel of the Lord. He has worshiped there, and God has made a promise to bring the people out to this mountain where they will worship him and where they will encounter God again, but on a much larger scale than just the burning bush. The whole mountain will look as though it's on fire when the people come back to this place. So join me tomorrow for episode 25 as we continue this conversation that Moses and the Lord are having here at the burning bush. And there are so many more things to unpack. I love these first chapters of Exodus, and I'm excited to share them with you. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much for journeying with us today at Simpler Bible through another section of Scripture where we come to know and understand God a little bit better. Look, if you're brand new to Simpler Bible, we have all sorts of resources available for you. Go to our website, simplerbible.com, and there you can find these videos, you can find our podcast, you can find links to our social media, and you can even find a blog post with additional scriptures if you want to go into a little bit more study than we had time to cover in this podcast and video today. We hope that this tool will be exactly that for you, a tool. Not something that replaces your daily walk with God, but something that enhances your daily walk with God and helps you to know and enjoy Him more. Thank you so much for being part of this, and we'll see you again tomorrow.